we're still in Proverbs. Well, I think I tried to do the whole book of Proverbs 2 different years and never succeeded. I think this is the farthest that I've succeeded in going. And so far he hasn't impressed me to do anything else, so I guess I'll just keep going till he changes my thinking. Anyway, we're going to go to Proverbs chapter 10. Do you feel up to reading, Miss Josie? Huh? Well, you give it a try anyway, huh? Oh, okay. Well, we'll try, and worst comes to worst, we'll just keep going until we quit. Kind of like Butch said he was on working. He says, I'm going to keep going until my body won't let me go any further. So, all righty. Let's see here. I think we're going to start out reading verses 1 through 11. And I think we're still doing it the same way. We seem to do okay this way. If y'all have any other suggestions, let me know. But we usually have Dave in the King James Version and Josie in the New Life, and I usually do the Amplified Version of the Bible, and I think we have time to each section read from all versions, unless something changes that. So, Dave, will you read verses 1 through 11 in Proverbs 10, please?
The Proverbs of Solomon. A wise son maketh a glad father, but a foolish son is the heaviness of his mother. Treasures of wickedness profit nothing, but righteousness delivereth from death. The Lord will not suffer the soul of the righteous to famish, but he casteth away the substance of the wicked. He becometh poor that dealeth with a slack hand, but the hand of the diligent maketh rich. He that gathereth in summer is a wise son, but he that sleepeth in harvest is a son that causeth shame. Blessings are upon the head of the just, but the violence covereth the mouth of the wicked. The memory of the just is blessed, but the name of the wicked shall rot. The wise in heart will receive commandments, but a prating fool shall fall. He that walketh uprightly walketh surely, but he that perverteth his ways shall be known. He that winketh with the eye causeth sorrow, but a prating fool shall fall. The mouth of a righteous man is a well of life, but violence covereth the mouth of the wicked.
Okay. Doing a lot of comparisons between the righteous and the wicked, aren't we? Josie, 1 through 11, please.
Happy is the man with a level-headed son, sad the mother of a rebel. Ill-gotten gains brings no lasting happiness, right living does. The Lord will not let a good man starve to death, nor will he let the wicked man's riches continue forever. Lazy men are soon poor, hard workers get rich. A wise youth makes her hay while the sun shines, but what a shame to see a lad who sleeps away his hour of opportunity. The good man is covered with blessings from head to foot, but an evil man inwardly curses his luck. We all have happy memories of good men gone to their reward, but the names of wicked men stink after them. The wise man is glad to be instructed, but a self-sufficient fool falls flat on his face. A good man has firm footing, but a crook will slip and fall. Wicked at sin leads to sorrow. Bold reproof leads to peace. There is living truth in what a good man says, but the mouth of the evil man is filled with curses.
Okay. And in the Amplified, it goes, the Proverbs of Solomon, a wise son makes a glad father, but a foolish and self-confident son is the grief of his mother. Treasures of wickedness profit nothing, but righteousness, moral and spiritual rectitude in every area and relation delivers from death. The Lord will not allow the uncompromisingly righteous to famish, but he thwarts the desire of the wicked. He becomes poor who works with a slack and idle hand, but the hand of the diligent makes rich. He who gathers in summer is a wise son, but he who sleeps in harvest is a son who causes shame. Blessings are upon the head of the uncompromisingly righteous, the upright in right standing with God. But the mouth of the wicked conceals violence. The memory of the uncompromisingly righteous is a blessing, but the name of the wicked shall rot. The wise in heart will accept and obey commandments, but the foolish of lips will fall headlong. He who walks uprightly walks securely, but he who takes a crooked way shall be found out and punished. He who winks with the eye, craftily and with malice, causes sorrow. The foolish of lips will fall headlong, but he who boldly reproves makes peace. The mouth of the uncompromisingly righteous man is a well of life, but the mouth of the wicked conceals violence. Any comments? Well, in the Amplified, what I noticed, there's a lot of comparisons here, and they all make sense to me. But I noticed the other two versions read quite differently when they're referring to the righteous man, and that's okay. But the word that I like is the uncompromisingly righteous. And that man is going to, or woman is going to have more blessings in their life because they don't get off into what they call the gray area. They know what's right and what's wrong, and they stick with what's right in the sight of God. And so they are blessed for it. And God tells us that if we seek ye first his kingdom, that all these things, and then before that verse there were some things listed, would be made available to us. And it's like we open the windows of heaven, so to speak, by doing things God's way. And all of Proverbs is constantly letting us see what happens when you do right in a certain situation and what happens when you do wrong. And I don't know about you, but the results of doing things the wrong way don't look too good to me. And the righteous man is given promises from God that is quite a blessing in so many ways. And so this whole chapter is kind of that way. Was there a verse that really stood out to anybody in particular that we just read?
There's a few verses talking about the mouth.
Yes. And we already know from another verse in Scripture, and I don't have it written down, that the tongue is hard to tame. So it's very important that we think before we speak. And I've been guilty of speaking and then going, and you can't take back those words. I wasn't even upset, but they weren't the right words to speak at the time. So messed up at those times. But thank goodness God forgives us, even when we let our mouth get out of control. Um, Another thing that goes hand in hand is the man who is lazy, he doesn't prosper. And whether it's from being untimely on what he does because he procrastinates, or whether he just doesn't feel like doing the job right now, so he doesn't, or whether he just wants to sleep all day or watch TV all day, or whatever, and he doesn't do things. If there's results from everything we do and everything we don't do, and talks about um, a person who isn't determined and diligent and sticks with a job and sees it to the end and gets it finished, he will have more victorious results because he stuck to it and worked hard to get it done. And then it also talks, what I like studying, well, I like the study of ants because they don't have anybody telling them what to do, but they gather their food when they're supposed to, and they do what they're supposed to do. They dig their little tunnels when they're supposed to, and therefore it keeps the whole, it doesn't just affect themselves, it affects those around them. And it talks here, about the son who gathers when he's supposed to is wise. And not only does he have plenty for himself, but he has plenty for the whole family or for friends even. Whereas the one who sleeps when he should be out there gathering the corn or harvesting the potatoes or whatever, he just lets them go to waste, and then there are none to harvest, as he doesn't choose to do things when they need to be done. He procrastinates until the opportunity is no longer there. And so that speaks volumes. This whole chapter speaks volumes. And it's all stuff we know, but it's good to think on it and to realize, if you've been blessed, maybe you've been blessed because you're a hard worker. God likes a hard worker. He likes someone who's determined to finish what they started when it's something that he approves of. It doesn't go against scriptures. So, okay, let's try verses 12 through 22.
Hatred stirreth up strifes, but love covereth all sins. In the lips of him that hath understanding wisdom is found, but a rod is for the back of him that is void of understanding. Wise men lay up knowledge, but the mouth of the foolish is near destruction. The rich man's wealth is his strong city. The destruction of the poor is their poverty. The labor of the righteous tendeth to life. The fruit of the wicked to sin. He is in the way of life that keepeth instruction, but he that refuseth reproof erreth. He that hideth hatred with lying lips, and he that uttereth a slander is a fool. In the multitude of words there wanteth not sin, but he that refraineth his lips is wise. The tongue of the just is as choice silver. The heart of the wicked is little worth. Is that
2 more verses.
21 and 22?
Yeah.
The lips of the righteous feed many, but fools die for want of wisdom. The blessing of the Lord, it maketh rich, and he addeth no sorrow with it.
Okay. Josie?
Hatred stirs old quarrels, but love overlooks insults. Men with common sense are admired as counselors. Those without it are beaten as servants. A wise man holds his tongue. Only a fool blurts out everything he knows. That only leads to sorrow and trouble. The rich man's wealth is his only strength. The poor man's poverty is his only curse. The good man's earnings advance the cause of righteousness. The evil man squanders his own sin. Anyone willing to be corrected is on the pathway to life. Anyone refusing has lost his chance. To hide hatred is to be a liar. To slander is to be a fool. Don't talk so much. You keep putting your foot in your mouth. Be sensible and turn off the flow. When a good man speaks, he is worth listening to, but the words of fools are a dime a dozen. A godly man gives good advice, but a rebel is destroyed by lack of common sense. The Lord's blessings is on greatest wealth. All our work adds nothing to it.
That's pretty good. All right, here's the amplified version of it. Hatred stirs up contentions, but love covers all transgressions. On the lips of him who has discernment, skillful and godly wisdom is found, but discipline and the rod are for the back of him who is without sense and understanding. Wise men store up knowledge in mind and heart, but the mouth of the foolish is a present destruction. The rich man's wealth is his strong city. The poverty of the poor is their ruin. The earnings of the righteous, the upright in right standing with God, lead to life, but the profit of the wicked leads to further sin. He who heeds instruction and correction is not only himself in the way of life, but also is a way of life for others. And he who neglects or refuses reproof not only himself goes astray, but also causes to err and is a path toward ruin for others. He who hides hatred is of lying lips, and he who utters slander is a self-confident fool. In a multitude of words transgression is not lacking, but he who restrains his lips is prudent. The tongues of those who are upright and in right standing with God are as choice silver. The minds of those who are wicked and out of harmony with God are of little value. The lips of the uncompromisingly righteous feed and guide many, but fools die for want of understanding and heart. The blessing of the Lord it makes truly rich, and he adds no sorrow with it, neither does toiling increase it. All right, surely somebody can come up with a comment there.
More words coming out of your mouth.
That's true. It also makes mention of how whatever we're doing or saying or whatever that brings about good affects others, and whatever we say or do or whatever that's bad brings harm to others. It's not just affecting ourselves, it's also affecting others around us. So, I've heard people list something that they're doing that they know they shouldn't do, but they say, well, it just harms me. No, it affects those around you. I've heard people use that as an excuse to drink alcoholic beverages all that they want, or smoke all they want, or take drugs all they want. And they say, well, it doesn't hurt anybody but me. But, oh, yes, it does. It affects anybody and everybody that cares about you, for one. And for another, your decision-making is poor because of it. And what you decide to do or not to do affects other people that are near you, even if you don't know them. You know, the person who's under the influence of alcohol makes wrong decisions, and a car accident can happen that can kill people or damage their bodies for life. So, no, it doesn't affect just you. But when we do things that are good, it still affects those around us. Even our attitudes, when we have a good attitude and people come in the room with us and we're displaying that good attitude, some of that good attitude rubs off. But when it's the other way around and it's bad attitude, it starts affecting those that come into the room. And so our attitudes are very important, and our behavior is very important, and our words are very important. And even when you think nobody's watching, somebody is watching. Especially if you mess up. Chuck likes would tell a story about how he had one of the kids with him in the truck on a trip, and these little cars don't realize those trucks cannot stop on a dime, especially if they're carrying some kind of oil product or liquid type stuff, because even if he gets the truck stopped, it'll go back this way inside the truck and go this way and push the truck forward. And he was always getting upset with, he didn't get rattled very often, but when he did, it was usually about four-wheelers who tried to cut him off and expected him to stop on a dime. And he said, don't they realize that this truck is bigger than their little car, and I could kill somebody, and I wouldn't have even done it on purpose. It's just I cannot get this thing to stop on a dime. It won't happen, especially if it's full of oil products and stuff like that, because that's even worse than the water, I think. But anyway, they both have a lot more going than what most people that drive a little car even think about. They don't stop and think about it unless they know a truck driver. So anyway, he made a sign to one of them that did that because he almost hit that guy, and it scared the daylights out of him. And of course, that was the time that son looked up. Time to see it. God already saw it. But anyway, he goes, Dad, because he had friends that did that, but he didn't picture his dad ever doing that. And he says, whoops. I let my emotions get the best of me, and it was witnessed. And so anyway, there you have it. You never know who might be watching at the time you don't want them to watch, so it's best to try not to let any of those times you'd be ashamed of pop into your life. Any other comments? All right, well, we're doing pretty good time-wise. Let's go with verse 23 to the end of the chapter. And I think it ends at 32. So Dave, 23.
It is sport to a fool to do mischief, but a man of understanding hath wisdom. The fear of the wicked, it shall come upon him, but the desire of the righteous shall be granted. As the whirlwind passeth, so is the wicked no more, but the righteous is an everlasting foundation. As vinegar to the teeth, and as smoke to the eyes, so is the sluggard to them that send him. The fear of the Lord prolongeth days, but the years of the wicked shall be shortened. The hope of the righteous shall be gladness, but the expectation of the wicked shall perish. The way of the Lord is strength to the upright, but the destruction shall be to the workers of iniquity. The righteous shall never be removed, but the wicked shall not inhabit the earth. The mouth of the just bringeth forth wisdom, but the forward tongue shall be cut off. The lips of the righteous know what is acceptable, but the mouth of the wicked speaketh forwardness.
Okay. And Josie, will you read verses 23 through 32?
A fool's fun is being bad. A wise man's fun is being wise. The wicked man's fears will all come true, and so will the good man's hopes. Disaster strikes like a cyclone, and the wicked are whirled away, but the good man has a strong anchor. A lazy fella is a pain to his employers, like smoke in their eyes or vinegar that sets the teeth on edge. Reverence for God adds hours to each day, so how can the wicked expect a long, good life? The hope of a good man is eternal happiness. The hopes of evil men are all in vain. God protects the upright but destroys the wicked. The good shall never lose God's blessings, but the wicked shall lose everything. The good man gives wise advice, but the liar's counsel is shunned. The upright speak what is helpful. The wicked speak rebellion.
Okay. And the Amplified. It is as a sport to a self-confident fool to do wickedness. I just want to stop right there. The wicked think it's funny to see the results of them being bad, like the bullies. They think it's funny to put fear in some innocent person's face over what they do. That's terrible. But to have skillful and godly wisdom is pleasure and relaxation to a man of understanding. The thing a wicked man fears shall come upon him, but the desire of the uncompromisingly righteous shall be granted. When the whirlwind passes, the wicked are no more. But the uncompromisingly righteous have an everlasting foundation. As vinegar to the teeth and as smoke to the eyes, so is the sluggard to who employ and send him. The reverent and worshipful fear of the Lord prolongs one's days, but the years of the wicked shall be made short. The hope of the uncompromisingly righteous, the upright, in right standing with God, is gladness, but the expectation of the wicked, those who are out of harmony with God, comes to nothing. The way of the Lord is strength and a stronghold to the upright, but it is destruction to the workers of iniquity. The consistently righteous shall never be removed, but the wicked shall not inhabit the earth eventually. The mouth of the righteous, those harmonious with God, bring forth skillful and godly wisdom, but the perverse tongue shall be cut down like a barren and rotten tree. The lips of the uncompromisingly righteous know and therefore utter what is acceptable, but the mouth of the wicked knows and therefore speaks only what is obstinately willful and contrary. Any comments?
Yep. The Old Testament is full of this kind of stuff. And just like today, if people don't have Jesus today, it's difficult to have any kind of change. They'll just continue in the same path as when they started. Without Jesus, there's no one else to change them from the inside out. And so we see this comparison, in Proverbs here. If you do it God's way, it'll work out. If you don't, it's not going to be too good. And it continues on like that. And well, that's the Old Testament. It was that's the way it was. There wasn't any change in the Old Testament. You just had to try and try again and try without any change. So today we have Jesus.
A lot of people believe in Jesus, and if you ask them, yeah, or they pray, Jesus help me. But they don't really know Jesus' words and God's path, and their mouth ends up cursing themselves because they are not speaking the way God would want them to speak. And this in Proverbs proves, everybody needs to read Psalms and Proverbs. It leads to all parts of the Bible anyway, especially Psalms going to reference to the New Testament, even though it's in the Old Testament. It copies the New Testament too.
It's true. That is true. A wise person will seek and find knowledge and understanding as much as they can and search the scriptures to know what they say, and pray to the Holy Spirit that the Holy Spirit would impress upon them the true understanding, because there's so much in this one book. So much there, and the more we understand what God is saying in this word, and do, not just find out about it and have the knowledge, not just have the understanding, those are all important, but they're acting upon what they've learned from this word and acting in a way that is approved of God. They're going to have blessings so much that their so-called cup of blessings will run over, and they'll be able to bless others as well, and it won't be just all about themselves, and it'll affect a lot of people in a good way, and as each person is affected in a good way, they affect others that the first person that affected them couldn't affect. Now, kind of said a bunch of stuff that was probably confusing there, but if you have a positive influence on this person to the point where their actions line up with that positive influence, then their positive influence it's like a chain reaction, like dominoes, only in a good way. So, yeah, Proverbs is so rich, and I won't profess to understand it all, but I do understand that one way is God's way and one way is not God's way in every situation. And black is still black and white is still white. God doesn't do the lukewarm and the gray. And I'm not talking about colors. But anyway, any other comments on chapter 10 or even Proverbs itself? We're open. Or if you have a testimony or a prayer request, it's about 15 after 8, so
Verse 13,
mm-hmm.
in the lips of him that have understanding wisdom is found, but a rod is for the back of him that is void of understanding. Well, they got rid of getting spanked,
Mm-hmm.
for because, I mean, they claim it's child abuse. And then they bring in this new, well, it's a timeout. You have a timeout, and then there's rewards. If you do certain things like you're told, then you get a reward. And well, that doesn't always work, because that's the way kids, they want to do things. They don't think about a reward all the time, but when you get older and you've never been disciplined, the reward doesn't matter anymore. It's what you want to do anyways. So that's another big problem why the world is in a mess today, because no discipline from the parents, no upbringing, no teaching, like the word says, to bring up your children in the way that they should go. Well, it's God's way. If there is no way to be learnt, then you go in the other way, the other direction.
Right. And on the spanking thing, it's not the spanking that was wrong. It was the way it was done that would make it abusive. Because if you do it properly, it's not used to hurt or damage. It's really, I have a hard time, it doesn't have to be applied strong enough to cause bleeding or bruises or anything like that. If it's applied correctly, if you apply it in love, you use it as a teaching tool to get their attention, and then you can teach them, because when they're acting out, they're not paying attention. And you can believe however way you want. I'm not trying to tell you how to believe, because there is a place in there, something about, well, the bruise that it causes won't do them any permanent damage or something like that, and that is true, but you're not going to accomplish anything if you don't get their attention somehow. You've got to get them to the point where they're listening, and they've got to understand, and some people only understand by experience and pain, that doing wrong brings pain and discomfort and things that are bad in your life. And so if it's applied correctly, you get that understanding. But if you're not doing it in understanding, like my mom, she was amazing, I think. When we were very, very young, she didn't wait till we were old enough that we were out of control first. She started when we were very young, and she would do things like, where it got our attention, but it didn't cause any physical harm. And on the spankings, she did the same thing. She'd spank a little harder because you got a little more cushion back there. But she would explain to us, when you do right, you don't get a spanking. If you're sorry for it and you correct yourself, you don't get a spanking. But when you haven't been paying attention and you're just going off doing your thing and not paying attention and not thinking about it ahead of time, this will get your attention back to get you to thinking. And then she told me, I don't know if this works for everybody, but it worked for me. She told me at a young age, if you don't like spankings, if you do what's right, you'll never have to have another spanking. And I thought, now that makes sense. So I tried real hard to do what she had taught me was right in the sight of God. And she told me that God sees everything. I could hide it from her, but I couldn't hide it from God. And so she taught me respect for God. She taught me that there's no need for any kind of bad things to happen to you if you're trying to do that which is right in God's sight. Now, what she didn't tell me was you can still have bad things happen to you as a result, even though you're doing things right, because the person next to you, maybe you get caught, you're in the wrong place at the wrong time, and they're doing something wrong, and you get affected by that. Like the bank robber. And those people in the bank weren't trying to do anything wrong, but there might have been some killed because they were in the bank when the bad guy decided to do his bad stuff. But anyway, basically, we need correction when we need to realize choosing wrong has consequences that are bad, and that's basically what that was meant for. And if it started at a young enough age, most people won't have to have the rod applied to their seat of understanding for very many years. They'll get the idea that if I do what's right and don't give mom, dad, teacher, police officer, or anybody reason to want to come against me, then as far as that's concerned, I should be okay and be safe. So, yeah. But that's true. There was a time when anytime parents or teachers, I was being taught to be a teacher, and I thought I wanted to be a teacher all my life until I did some student teaching, and then I changed my mind because that was during the time period when they made such a big deal over the spanking thing instead of saying there's a correct way or incorrect way to do something to get the kids' attention, that you couldn't control the class. And if you couldn't control the class, you couldn't teach the class. And I said, I don't know how to control the class if there's no consequences for the wrongdoing. If I can't take them to the principal's office, and I can't do this and I can't do that, what can I do to get them to realize that there's bad consequences to making wrong choices? And they didn't have any answers because everybody, there were teachers and parents that were afraid that they would be sued and taken to court for child abuse. Now, some of what they did was child abuse, and those are the ones that should have been taken, but not the ones that were applying it the correct way. And so it just kind of made it to where nobody had any, they weren't able to demand respect for the rules in their life, and that rules weren't there to imprison them. They needed to be taught that the rules were there to protect them from those who wanted to hurt them, and they didn't understand that. So how can you make them understand if they take away all your tools to teach them? And it wasn't always about the rod, but the rod kind of, to me, it's symbolic of teaching discipline and teaching right from wrong. So, all right, I'm rambling. So, any prayer requests?